You didn't fall in love with a person. You fell in love with a wound that looks like them. Let's say it out loud. You're not addicted to love. You're addicted to the echo of your childhood pain, dressed in the flesh of someone who reminds you you're unworthy. And you call it fate. You spiritualize it. You say, we're soulmates, when in truth, your soul is rotting in the same loop that first broke you. Jung warned us, long before dating apps and trauma memes, that we don't fall in love. We fall into projection. We don't choose partners. We unconsciously reanimate our deepest emotional injuries and beg them to hurt us again. Why? Because to the unconscious, pain is more familiar than peace. Because suffering makes you feel real. Still think you're the victim? You're not. You're the architect. You choose partners who ignore you, manipulate you, humiliate you. Not because you're unlucky, but because on a level so deep you can't admit it, it feels right. Like home, like mother, like father. Like the first time you learned love was painful, inconsistent, earned only through obedience or abandonment. The real horror isn't that someone broke your heart. The horror is that your soul begged them to. Jung knew this before attachment theory had a name. The psyche wants wholeness. And if wholeness means replaying the original trauma until you're shattered, so be it. The unconscious doesn't care if you suffer. It only cares that you recognize your shadow in the one you lust after. But you won't. You'll call it passion, chemistry, unresolved tension. It's not romantic, it's pathological. And you're addicted to it. Still think you're in love? Or are you just relapsing? This topic cannot be ignored, because it explains why your love life feels like a recurring nightmare, and why no matter how much you heal, you keep crawling back to the same kind of emotional poison. It's not because you're cursed. It's because your psyche wants it that way. Modern culture has dressed this dysfunction in glitter. It tells you to follow your heart, to trust your feelings, to wait for the right person. But what if your heart is twisted by trauma? What if your feelings were trained to crave rejection? And what if the right person you're waiting for is just the next chance to repeat your original suffering, with a prettier face and better Instagram captions? You don't date based on logic, you date based on memory. Emotional memory. And most people's emotional memory is a graveyard. They chase chaos, not because they're broken, but because their nervous system confuses anxiety with intimacy. The result? You bond with people who make you feel unsafe and call it attraction. Jung called this the anima and animus problem. We don't see people as they are. We see them as containers for our unconscious projections, which means every time you fall in love, you're not meeting someone new. You're meeting a part of yourself that you never healed. Or worse, a part of yourself you've refused to admit even exists. This is why you can't escape your patterns. You think your exes are all different, but in truth, they're psychological clones stitched together from the same unresolved wound. You run from one to the next hoping something will change, but the only thing that changes is the name. The trauma remains. The craving for emotional danger remains. You remain. This isn't just about love. It's about the lies we build our identities on. The myth that love will save us. The myth that time will heal us. The myth that next time will be different. No, it won't. Because you don't want different, you want familiar. And familiar is often the thing that first taught you what love was. Inconsistent, conditional, earned through pain. That's why kindness repels you. That's why stability feels boring. That's why good people make you feel empty. And until you confront this truth, until you peel back your romantic fantasies and stare directly into the mirror of your own emotional sickness, you'll keep dating ghosts, wounds, shadows, not people. Let's talk about a girl named Lila. She's 26, well-read, emotionally aware, swears she's done the work. Childhood trauma? She's journaled it. Therapy? Weekly. Yoga, ayahuasca, attachment theory reels? Check, check, and check. She tells her friends she's healed. She tells herself she's evolved. And then she meets him. Let's call him Milo. Charismatic. Slightly aloof. An edge of emotional unpredictability that makes her stomach tighten and her brain light up like a trauma Christmas tree. Within 2 weeks, she's obsessed. Within 4, she's addicted. When he texts, her body floods with dopamine. When he disappears, she rationalizes it. He's just busy. He has a lot on his plate. He's different. Except he isn't. He's not different at all. He's the same emotional ghost she's dated 10 times in 10 different forms. But this one feels more real, more important. Why? Because this time, her unconscious believes it has a chance to finally win, to fix what was broken at the origin, to finally be loved by the type of person who never loved her when it mattered most. She doesn't love Milo. She loves the pain he unlocks. Jung would say she's not dating a man, she's dating her complex. A psychic knot formed in the chaos of childhood, wrapped around emotional neglect and unmet validation. Every text he withholds, every compliment he rations, every moment of silence he weaponizes, only tightens the grip. Her friends say, "You deserve better." She nods. She knows. But still, she stays. Still, she waits. Because deep down, Lila isn't looking for love. She's looking for reenactment. Rejection feels like home. Disappointment is familiar. And the human psyche clings to the familiar. Even if it burns, this is not rare. This is the rule. Lila is the rule. You are the rule. This is how the trauma bonding cycle works. It starts with intensity, mistaken for connection. Then comes withdrawal, which triggers anxiety. Then the relief of reconnection, a hit of emotional heroin, then distance again, then the spiral. Lila's nervous system isn't in love. It's in limbic captivity. Her entire body is wired to find safety in pain and danger in peace. That's why she ghosts the kind ones. That's why she gets bored when she's respected. That's why she secretly resents the men who show up. They don't activate her pattern. They don't let her re-experience the wound she's fused with, the wound she's married to. Lila cries, but she doesn't leave. She complains, but she makes excuses. She begs for scraps of affection, then calls it intimacy. Why? Because she's convinced that if she can just make this one broken man love her, then maybe, just maybe, she wasn't unlovable to begin with. The tragedy is biblical. And it's everywhere. Jung knew that until you bring the unconscious to consciousness, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Lila thinks she's choosing love, but she's reenacting trauma. She thinks she's moving forward, but she's sleepwalking through a loop written in the language of emotional violence. And when it ends, and it always ends, she will break down, swear off dating, and in 6 months, repeat the exact pattern with a different man and the same unresolved wound. Because people don't want healing, they want recognition. They want the original pain to finally say, "You're worthy now." Even if it kills them. Your most intense love stories are often just unresolved childhood injuries trying to complete themselves. Still believe in romantic destiny? Or are you ready to admit you've just been king your own trauma? Lila doesn't leave Milo. She spirals deeper. Weeks turn to months. She's no longer confused. She's consumed. Her identity slowly fuses with the chase. The unpredictability of his attention becomes her compass. If he texts, she's alive. If he doesn't, she vanishes into paranoia. Her mind becomes a war zone, her body a shrine to anxiety. And the worst part? She still calls this love. Milo cheats, not in secret, in apathy. He doesn't lie. He just shrugs. We're not exclusive, right? And somehow, Lila takes this not as an insult, but a challenge. If she can just be enough, if she can just stay calm, be prettier, more understanding, he'll change. She believes in the myth of transformation through suffering. She spiritualizes her own degradation. This is growth, she whispers while wiping tears at 2 a.m. No, it's not growth. It's addiction masquerading as enlightenment. This is the lie of modern emotional culture. Love heals. No, love doesn't heal. Love reveals. And when what's revealed is self-loathing, abandonment wounds, and masochistic desire, you don't get healed, you get exposed. This is where popular morality collapses. We pretend love is a mutual act, but for many, it's an internal battle projected outward. You don't want partnership. You want emotional correction. You want the cruel parent to finally hold you, the narcissist to finally validate you, the one who ignores you to finally chase you. You want justice, not love. And that's what makes it so grotesque. Because here's the darkest truth. Lila is complicit. Not because she deserves pain, but because on a subterranean level, she wants it. It makes sense to her nervous system. Emotional chaos feels more trustworthy than peace, because peace was never safe growing up. Peace was the silence before the storm. Peace was manipulation. Peace was fake. So when a good man offers her calm, she rejects him, not consciously, but deeply. She'll say, "There was no spark." What she means is, "He didn't activate my trauma." No spark or no chaos. This is the hypocrisy no one wants to admit, especially not feminists or red pillars. Women aren't just victims of toxic men. They are also willing participants in their own psychic repetition compulsion. And men do it too. The wounded chase the unavailable. The unloved seek validation in those most likely to withhold it. It's a mutual dance of pain. Now, watch what happens when Lila finally confronts the truth. One night, Milo tells her plainly, "You're not the only one. There's no apology, just indifference." And that, somehow, is what finally snaps her. She breaks down, not just over him, but over every time she was never chosen. Every time she was second, forgotten, silenced. The grief explodes. But it's not grief over Milo. It's over herself. The self she abandoned to earn love from people who never even saw her. And this is where the sickness turns spiritual, because Lila doesn't heal, she reinvents. She says, "He was my twin flame." She says, "It was karmic." She says, "I had to go through that to find myself." All beautiful lies. The truth is, she didn't want love. She wanted to win the war against her childhood, and she lost. But losing would have been redemptive, if she learned. Instead, she decides it was divine. And by doing so, she ensures one thing: she will do it again. Because the worst thing isn't that we fall for trauma. The worst thing is that we spiritualize it. We turn cycles of abuse into destiny. We turn abandonment into sacred testing. We turn emotional addiction into chemistry. You don't need a god to curse you. You're doing that yourself. And you call it romance. Still think this is just a sad story? It's not. It's a mirror. And if you're still defending yourself right now, you've already seen your reflection. Here is the paradox you cannot digest. You seek what hurts you. Not by accident. Not because you're naive, but because your inner world has been carved by pain. And now you measure love by how closely it resembles that pain. It's not a bug in your system. It is the system. Your logic tells you to leave. Your body stays. Your friends say, "You deserve better." Your nervous system responds, "Better doesn't feel real." This is why logic and love are enemies. Because love, as most people experience it, is not about connection. It's about reenactment. A psychic theater in which you cast someone to play the role of your original wound, then beg them to rewrite the ending. But they never do, because that's not their role. That's not what you chose them for. Lila didn't choose Milo because he was good for her. She chose him because he was familiar. Because the chaos in his silence echoed the indifference she grew up breathing. Because her unconscious screamed, "Here's a chance to fix it." But she didn't fix it. She drowned in it. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You don't want peace. You want the emotional flavor of your earliest love story, even if that story ended in abandonment, betrayal, neglect, humiliation. And if someone shows up who doesn't match that flavor, you'll say, "It's too easy." You'll say, "There's no spark." You'll say, "I just didn't feel it." Because you confuse stillness with danger. You confuse consistency with lies. You confuse kindness with boredom. You are the architect of your own hell, and every time someone tries to pull you out, you call them weak. You push them away. You find someone darker, someone who can hurt you properly. Lila is not broken. Lila is operating exactly as designed. Her logic tells her to run. Her trauma tells her to kneel. And trauma always wins. So she returns to the same story. Different name, same wound. Again, love is not healing her. It is documenting her inability to escape herself. You think you're searching for a soulmate. You're not. You're searching for the perfect pain. No redemption, no soft landing, just repetition, and it will continue. Until you destroy the part of you that calls this love, there's no romance here. Only recursion. You aren't falling in love. You're falling backward, into patterns, into ghosts, into the arms of people your pain already chose long before you ever met them. You want to believe it's spiritual? It's not. You want to believe it's fate? It's not. It's programming, nervous system nostalgia, trauma wrapped in a pretty face. You think you're healing because you cry, because you journal, because you whisper affirmations. But none of that matters if you still call your self-betrayal intuition. Lila didn't need another heartbreak. She needed to admit her attraction was a symptom, not a sign. But she didn't, and neither will you. Because admitting that your deepest loves were just elaborate trauma reenactments would mean facing the ugliest truth of all. You weren't in love. You were just addicted to suffering that felt like home. And if you reject this, if you feel insulted, if you're already preparing your rebuttal, I ask you one thing. Look at your history. Look at the patterns. Look at who you keep choosing. And ask yourself honestly, is this love, or is this just your pain in a mask? You can curse me. You can rationalize. You can cry foul and call this too harsh. But none of that will change what you are about to do next. Scroll. Ghost. Repeat. I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to show you the scar.